Welcome to the Cheater's Diary, where we share raw, real-life stories packed with emotion and unforgettable twists. If you love this video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join us in spreading meaningful stories. Let's dive into today's journey. My name's Lucas. I'm 30 years old, living a quiet life in a small Virginia town. Picture a place where the streets are lined with old oak trees, where folks still wave from their porches, and where the biggest news is who baked the best pie for the church picnic. That's my world. Simple, familiar, comfortable. I work as an HVAC tech, fixing furnaces and air conditioners, driving my beat-up truck from job to job. It's honest work, keeps my hands busy and my mind steady. I own a modest two-bedroom house, nothing fancy, just enough for me and my old toolbox. The kind of place where the screen door creaks a little too loud, but it feels like home. This town's got that tight-knit feel. Neighbors borrow sugar, swap tools, or help jumpstart a car without a second thought. I'm the guy who's always pitching in. Need a hand moving a couch? I'm there. Someone's pipe sprung a leak. I'll grab my wrench and be over in 10. Last week, I mowed old Mrs. Carter's lawn when her son was out of town. It's just how things are here. You show up for people. That's the deal. Across the street from me live the Harpers, Jeffrey, and Sienna. They've got the kind of house you'd see on a postcard. White picket fence, perfectly trimmed hedges, not a blade of grass out of place. They're the couple everyone points to and says, they've got it all figured out. Jeffrey's a lawyer, always in a sharp suit, driving that shiny black SUV. Sienna's the heart of the operation, always out front, tending her roses or waving at passing cars. We're not close, not like buddies who grab beers together, but we're friendly enough. A nod here, a Merry Christmas there, maybe a quick chat about the weather during the neighborhood barbecue. They've always seemed perfect. Too perfect maybe, but I've noticed things. Little cracks in the facade, like how Jeffrey's been gone late some nights, his SUV rolling in well past midnight, or how Sienna's smile sometimes falters when she thinks no one's looking. I never thought much of it, though. People have their struggles. I figured it wasn't my place to pry. That day started like any other. It was a Friday, late afternoon, the kind of golden hour where the sunlight spills over everything, like honey. I got home around 5:30, kicked off my work boots, and headed to the kitchen. I'd been meaning to fix a wobbly cabinet hinge for weeks. It's one of those small, nagging things that drives you nuts every time you open the door. I rummaged through my toolbox, but my 10mm wrench was nowhere to be found. Typical. I could have waited, driven to the hardware store tomorrow, but I'm stubborn about finishing what I start. So I figured I'd walk across the street and ask Jeffrey if he had one I could borrow. No big deal, right? I slipped on my sneakers, crossed the quiet street, and stepped onto the Harpers' front path. Their house looked as pristine as ever, but something felt off. The porch light was on, glowing soft orange against the fading daylight, but the curtains were drawn tight. No sign of life, no hum of voices or clatter of dishes from inside. Just stillness. I shrugged it off and rang the doorbell. The chime echoed inside, sharp and hollow. I waited. Nothing. No footsteps, no, just a sec. From the other side, I shifted my weight, ready to turn back, when the door creaked open. There stood Sienna. I froze. She looked like a ghost of herself. Her eyes were swollen, red-rimmed, like she'd been crying for hours. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in uneven lines. Her hair, usually neat and pulled back, was a tangled mess, spilling over her shoulders. She wore an oversized cardigan, the kind you throw on when you don't care how you look. It hung loose, swallowing her frame. She clutched the door frame like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Sienna?" My voice came out softer than I meant. "Are you okay?" She blinked at me, like she was trying to process who I was, why I was there. Her lips twitched into a weak smile, the kind that disappears as soon as it shows up. "Lucas, hey, I wasn't expecting anyone." Her voice was shaky, barely holding together. I stood there, my brain scrambling for the right thing to say. The wrench suddenly felt like the dumbest reason to be standing on her porch. I was just going to ask to borrow a wrench for a cabinet, but it can wait. Are you sure you're all right?" My words felt clumsy, too small for whatever was happening. Her eyes welled up again, fresh tears spilling over. She wiped at her cheek with the sleeve of her cardigan, smearing the mascara further. "No," she said, so quiet I almost missed it. "I've seen people upset before. Mrs. Carter when her cat went missing. My buddy Tom after his divorce. But this was different." Sienna looked broken, like something inside her had cracked wide open. I glanced past her into the house. The lights were dim, the air heavy with silence. A half-empty box of tissues sat on the coffee table, crumpled ones scattered around it. A wine glass, half full, gleamed next to an open bottle. The perfect Harper house didn't feel perfect anymore. I shifted, unsure. Part of me wanted to back away, give her space, let her deal with whatever this was. But another part, the part that's carried groceries for widows and fixed pipes for neighbors, couldn't just walk off, not when she looked like this. "If you want to talk, I can stay," I said, my voice low, careful, "or I can go. Whatever you need." She shook her head slowly, wiping her face again. Her fingers trembled. Then she stepped aside, leaving the door open. "You can come in, if you want." I hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." I stepped inside, the air cool and heavy, like sadness had settled into the walls. Sienna motioned to the couch, and I sat down, careful not to disturb the fragile quiet around us. She sat across from me, her hands twisted together in her lap, knuckles white. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of her pain filled the room, and I knew, right then, that whatever came next, I wasn't just here for a wrench anymore. I sat on the Harper's couch, the cushions soft, but somehow unyielding, like they were holding their breath. The room was dim, shadows pooling in the corners. Sienna sat across from me in an armchair, her hands knotted together, nails digging into her palms. The half-empty wine glass on the coffee table caught the faint light, its red glow a stark contrast to the crumpled tissues scattered around it. The air felt thick, heavy, with something unspoken. I didn't know what to say, but I knew I couldn't leave. Not yet. "Sienna," I started, my voice low, careful. "You don't have to tell me anything, but I'm here, if you want." She looked at me, her red-rimmed eyes searching mine, like she was trying to decide if I was safe. For a moment, I thought she'd brush it off, send me home with a polite excuse. Then her shoulders slumped, and her voice cracked. "I kicked Jeffrey out." The words hit like a stone dropped into still water. "This morning. I couldn't take it anymore." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, my heart sinking. Jeffrey, the guy with the perfect suits and the polished smile. "What happened?" I asked, keeping my tone steady, though my mind was racing. She let out a bitter laugh, sharp and hollow. "What didn't happen? The lies, the cheating. I've known for years, Lucas. Years." She swiped at a tear, her sleeve dragging across her cheek. "I caught him twice. Text messages, hotel receipts. I stayed anyway, thinking I could fix it. Fix him. Today, I just snapped." I didn't say anything at first. What could I say? I'd seen them at neighborhood barbecues, Sienna's arm looped through Jeffrey's, both of them laughing like they had it all. It was an act. All of it. My chest tightened at the thought of her carrying that alone. "I'm so sorry, Sienna," I said finally. I had no idea." Nobody did. Her voice was quieter now, almost a whisper. She reached for the wine glass, then stopped, her fingers hovering. "I played the part. The perfect wife. The perfect house. I didn't want anyone to know I was failing." She looked down, her hair falling over her face like a curtain. "I didn't want to be alone." The word alone hung in the air, raw and heavy. I shifted, the couch creaking under me. "You're not a failure," I said, my voice firm. "You stood up for yourself. That's not failing. That's strength." She glanced up, her eyes meeting mine for the first time since I'd walked in. Something flickered there. Hope, maybe, or just relief that someone saw her. "You're kind, Lucas," she said softly. "I don't deserve that right now." "You do," I said, leaning a little closer. "You deserve better than what he gave you." She held my gaze, then looked away, her fingers twisting the edge of her cardigan. Silence settled between us, not awkward, but heavy, like we were both carrying the weight of her words. I noticed the ticking of a clock somewhere in the house, faint but steady, a reminder that time was moving, even if this moment felt frozen. "Do you want me to go?" I asked after a beat, not wanting to push, but unsure how long I should stay. She shook her head quickly, almost desperately. "Number, please. I don't want to be alone tonight." Her voice trembled, and she hugged her arms around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. "Okay," I said, nodding. "I'll stay." She exhaled, a small, shaky breath, and gestured toward the couch. "You can sit if you want." Keeping my movements slow, like I was afraid of breaking the fragile calm. She curled up in the armchair, tucking her legs beneath her, For a while, neither of us spoke. I glanced around the room, noticing things I hadn't before. A framed photo on the mantel, Sienna and Jeffrey at some beach, smiling, but her eyes looked distant even then. A vase of wilting roses on the side table, petals curling at the edges. The house felt like it was grieving too. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" she asked suddenly, her voice cutting through the quiet. "Like you're just playing a role?" I thought about it, my hands resting on my knees. Yeah, sometimes. A few years back, I was engaged. Thought I had it all planned out. Wedding, house, kids, the whole deal. Then she left, said she wasn't ready. I spent months feeling like I was stuck in a script I didn't write. Her eyes softened, a flicker of understanding passing between us. "What did you do? How did you keep going?" I shrugged, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Work, friends, time, and a lot of bad takeout. You just keep moving, even when it hurts. Eventually, you find your way back to yourself." She nodded slowly, like she was trying to hold on to that idea. "I don't know who I am without him," she admitted. "That's the worst part. I gave him everything, Lucas. Everything. And he gave me lies." My hands clenched, a quiet anger rising in my chest. Not at her, but at Jeffrey, at the way he'd broken something so bright. "He didn't deserve you," I said, my voice steady but firm. "And you're more than what he made you feel." She looked at me, her eyes welling up again, but this time she didn't wipe the tears away. They fell freely, glinting in the dim light. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saying that. For staying." I reached out, hesitating, then placed my hand gently on the arm of her chair, close but not touching. "You don't have to thank me. I'm just here." We talked for hours after that, not just about Jeffrey, but about everything. Her love for gardening, how she'd planted those roses out front herself, my habit of fixing things around the neighborhood, even when no one asked. We shared small stories, the kind that don't mean much on their own, but build something real when you string them together. Somewhere around midnight, the wine bottle was nearly empty, and Sienna's voice had softened, her words slower, like she was finally letting herself breathe. "I should let you go," she said, standing and stretching, her cardigan slipping off one shoulder. "It's late." I stood too, my back stiff from the couch. "Yeah, probably." I started toward the door, but she paused, her hand on the doorknob, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Lucas," she said, barely above a whisper, "would you stay? Just for a bit longer. I don't think I can be alone yet." I looked at her, saw the raw loneliness in her eyes, and nodded. "All right, I'll stay." She gave me a faint, grateful smile and led me back to the couch. She grabbed a blanket from a nearby chair and draped it over herself, curling up at one end. I sat at the other, keeping space between us, my hands folded in my lap. Minutes passed, and her breathing slowed, her head resting against the armrest. She drifted off, the blanket slipping slightly, her face softer in sleep than I'd seen all night. I stayed awake, staring into the dark, the ticking clock, the only sound. Something had shifted tonight, something I couldn't name yet. I knew I wasn't just a neighbor anymore, not to her, not to myself. Morning light crept through the half-closed curtains, soft and gray. Sienna stirred, blinking slowly, her eyes finding mine. For a second, she looked confused. Then it hit her. "You stayed," she said, her voice hoarse but warm. "Couldn't leave you," I replied, my smile small but genuine. She sat up, tucking her hair behind her ear. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to keep you all night." "Don't be," I said. "You needed someone. I'm glad it was me." She nodded, her eyes holding mine a moment longer than necessary. "Coffee?" she asked, standing and moving toward the kitchen. "Sounds good," I said, following her. The kitchen was pristine, almost too clean, like it hadn't been touched in days. She moved quietly, scooping coffee grounds into the filter, her hand steadier now. I leaned against the counter, giving her space, but staying close. As the coffee brewed, filling the air with its warm, bitter scent, she turned to me. "I can't believe you stayed," she said, her voice soft. "Jeffrey would have left. He always did when things got hard." I met her gaze, my heart aching for her. "You deserve someone who stays," I said, "someone who doesn't run." She looked down at her coffee mug, her fingers tracing its rim. "I don't know what I deserve anymore," she said, almost to herself. "You'll figure it out," I said, my voice gentle but sure,
felt
"and you
different,
won't have
like
to do
the
it
air
alone."
had shifted.
I couldn't stop thinking about Sienna, her tear-streaked face, the way her voice cracked when she said she didn't want to be alone. I kept my routine, work, fixing air conditioners, grabbing coffee at the diner, but my mind was across the street, wondering how she was holding up. That Friday night, I found myself standing in my kitchen, staring at a bunch of daisies I'd picked up at the market. Simple flowers, nothing flashy. I didn't overthink it. I just grabbed them and walked over. I knocked on her door, the daisies dangling in my hand. The porch light flickered, casting soft shadows. Sienna opened the door, her hair tied back loosely, wearing a faded sweatshirt. Her eyes were still tired, but the swelling was gone. She looked at the flowers, then at me, her brow furrowing. "Lucas, what's this?" I shrugged, feeling a little foolish. "Thought you could use some color. They're just daisies, nothing big." Her lips parted, like she didn't know what to say. Then a small smile broke through, the first real one I'd seen since that night. "No one's ever brought me flowers just because," she said, her voice soft. She took them, her fingers brushing the petals. "Thank you." "Anytime," I said, stuffing my hands in my pockets. "You doing okay?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in. I was just making tea." I followed her into the kitchen. The house felt less heavy now, though the tissues were still on the coffee table. She set the daisies in a glass vase, filling it with water. "They're beautiful," she said, arranging them carefully. "Really?" We sat at the kitchen table, steaming mugs of chamomile between us. The fridge hummed softly, and outside, crickets chirped in the warm evening air. "It's been quiet," she said, staring into her tea. "Too quiet. I keep expecting him to walk through the door like nothing happened." I nodded, my fingers tracing the mug's handle. "That's got to be hard." "You hear from him?" She shook her head. "Not since he left. I got a text yesterday, though. Said he's sorry, wants to talk." Her voice tightened. "I deleted it. I can't, not yet." "Good for you," I said, meaning it. "You're setting boundaries. That's not easy." She glanced up, her eyes searching mine. "You think so? I feel like I'm just surviving." "Surviving's a start," I said. "You're stronger than you know, Sienna." Her smile was faint, but real. "You keep saying stuff like that. I'm starting to believe you." We talked for a while, about small things at first. Her favorite old movie, The Sound of Music. How she'd watch it every Christmas as a kid. My habit of burning toast every morning, no matter how hard I tried. Then it got deeper. She told me about her garden, how she'd spent years tending those roses out front, only to neglect them lately. I told her about my old engagement, how I'd planned a life that never happened. "It broke me for a while," I admitted. "But you rebuild piece by piece." She nodded, her eyes distant. "I want to rebuild. I just don't know where to start." "Start small," I said. "Maybe those roses. Get your hands in the dirt. It helps." She looked at me, a spark of something new in her eyes. "You're full of wisdom, huh?" I grinned. "Nah, just faking it till I make it." She laughed, a soft, genuine sound that warmed the room. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh, and it hit me how much I wanted to hear it again. That night set a rhythm. I'd stop by after work, sometimes with coffee, sometimes just to say hi. She'd invite me in, and we'd sit on her porch, watching the neighborhood settle into dusk. Her golden retriever, Rusty, would sprawl at our feet, tail thumping lazily. We'd talk about nothing and everything, bad takeout orders, the time I accidentally painted my neighbor's fence the wrong color, her collection of old postcards from places she'd never been. Other times, we'd get quiet, and she'd share heavier stuff. How Jeffrey's lies had chipped away at her confidence. How she'd stayed because she was scared of starting over. "I thought I'd lose myself if I left," she said one evening, her voice low. The porch swing creaked as we rocked gently. "Now I'm realizing I lost myself by staying." I looked at her, the moonlight catching her profile. "You're finding yourself now. That's what matters." She turned to me, her eyes soft but guarded. "Why do you keep showing up, Lucas? You don't have to do this." I leaned back, the swing swaying slightly. "I don't know. It just feels right. You're not alone in this, Sienna. Not if I can help it." She didn't say anything, just reached down to scratch Rusty's ears. She called me over to help fix a wobbly fence post in her backyard. We spent the afternoon digging, hammering, and laughing when Rusty kept stealing the screws. Dirt smudged her cheek, and her hair fell loose from its ponytail. She looked alive, more like herself than I'd ever seen. "You're terrible at this," she teased, watching me struggle with the post. "Hey, I'm an HVAC guy, not a carpenter," I shot back, grinning. "You're lucky I didn't bring duct tape." She laughed, tossing a clump of dirt at me. It missed, landing at Rusty's paws. He barked, tail wagging like crazy, and we both cracked up. For a moment, the world felt light, like the weight of her pain had lifted, if only for a second. Later, we sat on the grass, sipping lemonade, the fence post finally standing straight. "I haven't laughed like this in forever," she said, her voice soft. "Thank you, Lucas." "Don't thank me," I said. "You did the hard part. I just brought the hammer." She smiled, but there was something new in her eyes. Trust, maybe, or hope. It was small, fragile, but real. The next week, I noticed changes. She'd started pruning her roses again, the garden coming back to life. She smiled more, her laughter coming easier. But there were still shadows. One evening, as we walked our usual loop around the neighborhood, she stopped, staring at her wedding ring. "I keep thinking if I take it off, it's real," she whispered. "Like I'm admitting it's over." I stepped closer, my voice gentle. "You don't have to rush it. There's no deadline for this." She looked at me, her eyes glistening. "You're too good at this, making me feel like I'm not broken." "You're not," I said, meaning every word. "You're just healing." She nodded, tucking her hands in her pockets. We kept walking, the crickets loud in the evening air. Rusty trotted ahead, chasing a moth. I glanced at her, noticing how she carried herself a little taller, like she was starting to believe she could stand on her own. That night, back on her porch, she handed me a small box. Inside was a coffee mug, bold letters spelling out "Best Neighbor Ever." A note was tucked beside it, her handwriting neat but shaky. "You've been more than a neighbor," it read. "You've been a friend. Thank you for reminding me I'm still here." I looked up, my throat tight. "Sienna, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she said, her smile soft. "Just keep showing up." I nodded, holding the mug like it was something precious. "I will." As I crossed the street back to my place, the stars bright above, I felt something settle in my chest. This wasn't just about helping a neighbor anymore. I cared about her, more than I'd let myself care about anyone since my engagement fell apart. But I knew she wasn't ready for more. Not yet. So I'd wait. I'd show up, and I'd keep bringing daisies, hoping one day she'd see herself the way I was starting to see her. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the envelope in my hand. 2 plane tickets to San Diego. My heart was pounding, second-guessing every choice that led to this moment. It was impulsive, maybe even reckless. But Sienna needed a break, a chance to breathe away from the weight of her house, her past, her pain. I'd been there once. After my engagement fell apart, a weekend fishing trip with my brother pulled me out of the fog. Maybe this could do the same for her. I took a deep breath, grabbed my jacket, and walked across the street. Sienna opened the door, her hair loose, a faint smile on her face. She was in a soft blue sweater, looking more like herself than she had in weeks. "Lucas," she said, tilting her head. "What's with that grin? You look like you're up to something." I held up the envelope, my hands a little shaky. "Okay, hear me out. I know this is out of left field, but—" I paused, searching her eyes. "I got us tickets to San Diego, just for a week. No pressure, just a change of scenery. Sun, ocean, a fresh start." Her eyes widened, the smile fading into something like disbelief. "You're serious?" She took the envelope, her fingers brushing mine as she opened it. The tickets gleamed under the porch light, bold and real. "Lucas, why?" I shrugged, trying to keep it light. "You've been carrying a lot. Thought you could use a break, somewhere new, where the past doesn't follow you." She stared at the tickets, her lips parting. For a moment, I thought she'd say no, that it was too much, too soon. Then her eyes softened, and a slow, genuine smile spread across her face. "You're impossible," she said, laughing, a real bright laugh that lit up the night. "Okay, yes, let's do it." I grinned, relief flooding through me. Next day, we boarded the plane. We leave tomorrow morning. Sienna sat by the window, her hands folded in her lap, staring out at the clouds. We didn't talk much during the flight, but the silence felt easy, comfortable, like neither of us needed to fill it with words. I caught her stealing glances at me, her eyes curious, maybe even a little hopeful. When we landed in San Diego, the warm air hit us like a wave, carrying the scent of salt and palm trees. Sienna closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "This feels good," she said, her voice soft but sure. We checked into a small boutique hotel on the edge of town, tucked between swaying palms and rolling hills. Our room had a balcony with a view of distant mountains, the kind that made you feel small but grounded. That first day, we wandered through local shops, Sienna's eyes lighting up at a vintage bookstore. She ran her fingers over the spines of old novels, her smile soft. "My mom used to read me these," she said, holding up a worn copy of Anne of Green Gables. I forgot how much I loved them. I leaned against a shelf, watching her. "Buy it. Start a new collection." She hesitated, then nodded, tucking the book under her arm. "Maybe I will." We stopped at a sidewalk cafe, sipping iced lattes under a striped awning. The street was alive with color, vendors selling handmade jewelry, a guitarist strumming a lazy tune, the hum of conversation blending with the breeze. Sienna leaned back in her chair, her shoulders loosening. "I haven't felt this free in a long time," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "You deserve it," I said, meaning it every second. That night, we ate at a little bistro, string lights twinkling above us, the air warm with the scent of grilled seafood and citrus. Sienna laughed at my terrible attempt to pronounce ceviche, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen back home. But halfway through dinner, her smile faltered. She set her fork down, staring at a couple across the patio, their hands intertwined, laughing like they had no cares in the world. "That used to be me," she said quietly. "Or at least, I thought it was." I reached across the table, my hand resting near hers but not touching. "That wasn't you, Sienna. That was a role you played. This, right here, right now. This is you." She looked at me, her eyes glistening but steady. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not," I said. "But you're doing it. One step at a time." She nodded, her fingers brushing mine for just a moment. It was small, but it sent a jolt through me. I pulled back, not wanting to push, not wanting to misread her. The days blurred into a rhythm of quiet moments. Mornings, we walked desert trails, the crunch of gravel under our feet, the sun warm on our skin. Afternoons, we lounged by the hotel pool, Sienna reading her new book while I pretended to read mine, stealing glances at her instead. One afternoon, she caught me. "What?" she said, laughing, her sunglasses perched on her head. "Nothing," I said, grinning. "Just making sure you're not falling asleep." She tossed a towel at me, her laugh bright and unguarded. "You're ridiculous." That evening, we rented bikes and rode through the botanical gardens, the paths winding through bursts of color, red hibiscus, yellow wildflowers, cacti sharp against the sky. Sienna stopped near a patch of marigolds, their petals glowing in the late sun. "My mom loved these," she said, her voice soft. "She'd say they were proof you could find beauty in tough places." I stepped closer, my hand brushing her shoulder. "She was right, and she'd be proud of you, Sienna. You're finding beauty again." She turned to me, her eyes glistening, but she smiled. "I think she would be. Because of you." My heart caught in my chest. I wanted to say more, to tell her how much she was starting to mean to me, but I held back. She was still healing, still fragile. I wouldn't rush her. Our last night in San Diego, we walked along the edge of the resort, where the desert met the mountains. The sky was a canvas of orange and gold, the air cool and quiet. Sienna stopped, her hands tucked into her jacket. "I've been dreading going home," she admitted, her voice low. "Back to that house, those memories. But I think I can do it now. Because of this. Because of you." I took her hands gently, my thumbs brushing over her knuckles. "You did this, Sienna. I just got to walk beside you." She shook her head, her eyes locked on mine. "Number, you gave me a reason to keep going." She stepped closer, her breath catching. Then slowly, she leaned in and kissed me. It was soft, tentative, full of quiet hope. My heart raced, but I kept still, letting her set the pace. When she pulled back, her eyes were wide, like she'd surprised herself. "You okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, a small smile breaking through, hands still clasped, the stars beginning to speckle the sky. No words were needed. Something had shifted, something real and delicate. We both felt it. The next morning, we packed in silence, but it wasn't heavy. It was peaceful, like we were carrying something new back with us. At the airport, Sienna leaned her head against my shoulder as we waited to board. "Lucas," she whispered, "thank you for giving me this." I kissed the top of her head, my voice soft. "It's just the start." As the plane took off, I looked out of the window, the coastline fading below. Sienna's hand rested near mine on the armrest, close but not touching. I smiled to myself. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. Back in Virginia, the air felt different. Not heavier, but steadier, like the world had settled into a new rhythm. Sienna's house, still hers, not ours yet, began to feel alive again. The roses in her garden bloomed brighter, their petals catching the morning dew. Rusty, her golden retriever, greeted me every evening with a slobbery tennis ball, like I'd always been part of the routine. Our walks around the neighborhood became a habit, our hands brushing as we passed familiar porches, the lake trail glowing under twilight. Sienna's steps were lighter now, her laughter freer, though shadows of her past still lingered. One evening, as we sat on her porch swing, the creak of the chains soft against the hum of crickets, she pulled out her phone. "Jeffrey called today," she said, her voice calm but edged with tension. "He's selling his car, needs me to sign some papers, wants to meet." I leaned forward, my hands clasped. "How do you feel about that?" She stared at the horizon, the sky streaked with pink. "Angry, sad, but mostly done. I don't want to see him. I'll mail the papers." She looked at me, her eyes steady. "That's new for me. Choosing myself." I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. "That's huge, Sienna. You're taking your life back." She nodded, her fingers grazing mine. "Because you showed me I could." Our days deepened into something unspoken but real. We'd cook dinner together, laughing when I mangled the onions, Rusty circling for scraps. We'd watch old sitcoms, her head resting on my shoulder, the glow of the TV soft in the dark. One night, she slipped her wedding ring off, setting it in a drawer without a word. I didn't comment, but I saw the weight lift from her shoulders, her smile brighter the next morning. Then came the moment I'd been carrying in my heart for weeks. I'd bought the ring, a simple diamond, elegant but unassuming, right after San Diego. I'd rehearsed the words 100 times, pacing my living room, second-guessing every syllable. But I knew it was time. One Friday evening, we walked to our favorite bench by the lake, the water shimmering under a sky painted with oranges and purples. Rusty trotted ahead, chasing a squirrel, his tail a blur. Sienna leaned against me, her warmth steadying my nerves. I stopped, turning to face her. Her eyes caught mine, curious, a smile tugging at her lips. "What's up?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed calm. I reached into my jacket, pulling out the small velvet box. Her breath caught, her hands flying to her mouth as I opened it, the ring glinting in the fading light. "Sienna," I began, "we didn't plan this. Neither of us was looking for it. But what we've built, it's real. You've shown me what love can be, the kind that stays, the kind that fights through the hard stuff. I want to spend every day showing you what you mean to me. Will you marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling. She laughed, a soft, shaky sound, shaking her head in disbelief. "Lucas, I can't believe this." She stepped closer, her voice cracking. 15 years, I gave everything to someone who made me feel invisible. I thought I'd never be enough. Then you walked across the street and gave me my life back." She cupped my face, her touch warm. Yes, I'll marry you." I slipped the ring onto her finger, her tears falling freely now, her smile radiant. We held each other, the lake quiet around us, Rusty barking in the distance. In that moment, under the wide Virginia sky, everything felt right. 6 months later, we stood by that same lake, the bench now a quiet witness to our vows. The ceremony was small, just close friends and family, the air soft with spring. Sienna wore a simple white dress, her hair loose, a daisy tucked behind her ear. Rusty trotted down the aisle as our ring-bearer, a tiny pillow tied to his collar, his tail wagging like he knew the moment mattered. I took her hands, my voice steady but thick with emotion. "I promise to love you through every storm, to be patient while you heal, her voice strong despite the tears. I promise to let myself be loved, to believe this is real, to choose you every day." When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," I leaned in, kissing her slowly, fully, the world fading around us. Cheers erupted, but all I saw was her, my wife, my home. Our life wasn't perfect. There were nights when Sienna's fears crept back, when old wounds reopened, days when I doubted I could be enough. But we faced it together, hands clasped, voices honest. We traveled, back to San Diego, then to new places, collecting postcards for her collection. We adopted another rescue dog, a scruffy mutt named Daisy, who followed Rusty like a shadow. Our house, hers, now ours, filled with laughter, light, and the clatter of dog paws on hardwood. Evenings found us on the porch, Rusty and Daisy sprawled at our feet, the lake glowing under the setting sun. Sienna would lean against me, her voice soft. I never thought I'd have this. And I'd always say, you deserve every second of it. Our story wasn't a fairy tale. It was built on broken pieces, on patience, on choosing each other when walking away would have been easier. That's what made it ours. That's what made it real. And that, friends, is our story. A reminder that love can bloom in the hardest places, that healing starts with one brave step, and that sometimes the person who changes everything is just across the street. Here at The Cheater's Diary, we share stories of betrayal, resilience, and redemption to show you that no matter how deep the hurt, there's always a path forward. What's your story? Have you found love after heartbreak, faced a betrayal, and come out stronger? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your story might inspire someone else to keep going. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a tale of second chances. Let's keep this community growing, sharing, and healing together. Until next time, keep choosing yourself. You're worth it.